Hi everyone. I love 80s movies and I came across this video. 15 forgotten 80s ghost movies or stories beginning to revolve. Bleh. I'm sorry, I only just woke up. 15 forgotten 1980s ghost stories begging for a rewatch. Damn. I really do love 80s movies. And I'm curious to see if this video has any new ones I maybe never saw before and I might enjoy seeing. Maybe it'll be the same for you guys. Let's check it out.
Did you know the 1980s oozed out more ghostly chillers than any other decade, yet only a handful, think Poltergeist, ever get the spotlight? Over 24 supernatural features from that neon-soaked era scored festival awards or cult followings before vanishing from video store shelves forever. Tonight, we're unearthing 15 forgotten phantasm flicks that once rattled VHS players and now beg for a glorious rewatch. So slam that like button, subscribe, and let's blow the cobwebs off these ectoplasmic treasures. The Changeling, 1980. The decade's most elegantly mounted ghost story didn't come from Hollywood at all. It arrived from chilly Vancouver by way of Hungarian-born director Peter Medak. Grief-stricken composer John Russell retreats to a Victorian mansion where a dusty child's wheelchair and a music box that plays his own melody ignite a seance of sorrow. That infamous wheelchair sequence, filmed with nothing but fishing wire and shadowy lighting, remains nightmare fuel decades later. Behind the camera, producer Garth Drabinsky gambled Canadian tax shelter money on Globe-class production design, then watched the film sweep 8 inaugural Genie Awards, including Best Picture, making it Canada's first worldwide horror hit.
I always thought The Changeling was a movie where there was a tree on or near the property this couple was staying at. The wife was pregnant, and when she had the baby, she took the baby to the tree, and the tree absorbed the baby. I don't know what movie I'm thinking of, but that's what I thought The Changeling was. I've never seen this before.
Yet box office buzz faded once The Shining hogged U.S. screens, and The Changeling was left rattling chains on late-night cable. Why revisit? Because Medak's slow-burn pacing feels radical in today's jump-scare market. Themes of political corruption, an adopted heir literally murdering a disabled child for inheritance, still sting, and the soundtrack's lonely piano predated modern elevated horror minimalism by 40 years. For 80s audiences scarred by divorce, recession, and urban decay, the film's message was clear. Your safe new house may carry ghosts of crimes past. Rewatch now, and you'll hear DNA echoes in everything from The Orphanage to Hereditary. Ghost Story, 1981.
Okay, this I have heard of, and I saw it once on TV. But back in the 80s, that was the days where HBO and WHT were really popular, but I think they were the only cable channels. We didn't have cable until the very late 90s, early 2000s. So a lot was cut out. I saw it, didn't enjoy it. I was a kid. My mother enjoyed it, and I couldn't figure out why. But as far as I can remember, this was pretty popular. People were talking about it. So I don't know why it's on a list of forgotten ghost story movies.
Imagine 4 Hollywood legends, Fred Astaire, Melvin Douglas, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., and John Houseman, trading top hats for tombstones. That casting coup, wrangled by British director John Irvin, turned Peter Straub's best-selling novel into a wintry meditation on guilt. On location in Saratoga Springs, New York, Astaire confessed to Irvin that he felt he might die or be murdered on set, a fear that eerily mirrors the film's plot of old men haunted by the woman they wronged. While critics praised its atmosphere, Universal Pictures trimmed character beats to squeeze in more shocks, leaving audiences disoriented and ticket sales lukewarm. Today, that truncated cut feels like an art house curio, as if the Big Chill spent the night in a crypt. The impact on the era? Ghost Story whispered that prestige actors could headline horror without trashing their reputations, paving a path for Bette Davis and Gregory Peck. Revisit, and you'll find icy cinematography, a chilling score by Philippe Sard, and Alice Kriege serving vengeance colder than New England snow.
Okay, now this is going to be a spoiler. What I remember, or what I was told this movie was about, 4 young men raped and killed a beautiful young woman. And years later, her ghost came back for revenge. I don't know how true it is. I haven't looked it up. But that's what I remember. And back then, I didn't know what the word rape meant. I didn't have a clue. And as stupid as it seems, I didn't really know what sex was until I had it. And then it was years and years later, I found out what rape was. This wasn't stuff discussed in my household. My parents never discussed rape and they never discussed sex. It wasn't something that was talked about. Oh, yeah, so many kids were way ahead of me. But yeah, this would make a very good revenge story. Like the accused. The guys doing the rape thought, oh yeah, this is okay because of the way she's dancing. And they consider themselves men, even the one who was cheering on the rapes thought it was a great show. So yeah, things like that were never talked about in our household. But the more I think about Ghost Story, it's something I might want to see because that's a horrible thing and the guys should have been punished.
The Hearse, 1980. Released weeks after Friday the 13th, George Bowers's The Hearse drove straight past multiplexes, yet its premise is devilishly simple. A schoolteacher inherits her late aunt's Gothic manse, only to be stalked by a driverless funeral coach. Crown International Pictures spent a modest $2.8 million and still landed prime summer slots in New York City, banking on poster art alone. Why did it stall? Audiences wanted splatter. Bowers delivered atmosphere, moonlit roads, viola-heavy score, and a heroin gaslit by conservatively dressed townsfolk. But the VHS boom turned slow-burn thrillers into sleepover staples, and The Hearse gained midnight movie mileage, especially among teens craving PG-rated frights that felt unsafe. Its legacy on that generation shows in how countless 80s kids still shudder when an empty vehicle's headlights flick on in the dark. Fire it up today and note how the film's feminist undertone, small-town patriarchy burying women's autonomy, prefigures 21st century gaslight horror. The Nesting, 1981. Shot in Irvington, New York under
Okay, never heard of the hearse and never heard of the nesting.
the working title Phobia, this haunted brothel shocker came from unlikely author Armand Weston, better known for 70s adult cinema. Distributors rechristened it The Nesting to cash in on The Shining's domestic dread, ironically ignoring the protagonist's agoraphobia, the very nesting affliction Weston wanted to explore. The novelist Lauren Cochrane rents a Victorian mansion once home to sex workers murdered by soldiers in 1941. Ghostly madams seduce, soldier spirits strangle, and staircases collapse like bad memories. The film's biggest technical feat is its swirling Steadicam work, impossible on Weston's minuscule budget, yet capturing PTSD vertigo years before Jacob's Ladder. For Reagan-era viewers navigating post-Vietnam trauma and second-wave feminist backlash, The Nesting resonated. History's violence against women returns until confronted head-on. Critical ridicule sent it to bargain bins, but the home video generation championed its avant-garde lens flares.
Don't down bargain bins. A lot of great movies were discovered in them. And a lot of people might say, well, they weren't in the movies, they didn't this. It doesn't matter. There have been plenty of movies people love that weren't great big blockbuster hits. You know, everybody's taste is different. There are made for TV movies that people love and adore. And yet, a lot of people hear made for TV movie and they don't even want to give it a chance. You could find a lot you might like. So don't knock bargain bins.
And jazzy score. Today, boutique labels sell 4K restorations, reclaiming Weston as a volatile visionary whose lone mainstream outing deserves a guilt-free revisit. Lady in White, 1988. Few ghost...
I love this movie. It stars Ryan White, Alex Rocco, Catherine Hellman is in it. I first saw this in 1986 in upstate New York. Whatever was going on, I was staying with my aunt for the summer. And what I mean by whatever was going on, there was only one cable channel. And I'd never heard of that. I thought if you got cable, you got all cable channels. And the channel my aunt had in upstate New York was HBO. And that's the channel she just kept on as like background noise. So I'm sitting there one day and I'm watching, and it was this movie, The Lady in White. I loved it. I loved it so, so much. I love it till this day. And I'm probably going to do a Rumble reaction to it. It doesn't seem like something that would be in the movies, all fancy, flashy shit like that. No, 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 no. But it was really good and really creepy. And I love Alex Rocco because he played Joe Poniachek's father in the Facts of Life TV series. And Lucas Haas was also in the Ryan White story. Such an amazing little actor. I've only seen him in one movie as an adult, and it's called While She Was Out. Another very good movie. It's not supernatural horror, but it is a very good movie. Okay, back to the video.
Tales blend childhood wonder and serial killer dread, like writer-director-composer Frank LaLoggia's Lady in White. Financed via a penny stock company, LaLoggia formed with his cousin a unique DIY model that raised $4.7 million from 4,000 small investors. It shot for nostalgia-soaked Americana in Lyons, New York. Set on Halloween 1962, the film traps young Frankie in a school cloakroom where he sees the specter of a murdered girl and the faceless man who killed her. That blend of gentle Spielbergian awe and hard R danger confused distributors. The picture limped to $1.7 million against its budget, then disappeared. Yet for countless Gen X kids who discovered it on cable, Lucas Haas's wide-eyed terror became a rite of passage, and its anti-racism subplot, an innocent black janitor scapegoated, mirrored the decade's racial tensions. Rewatching today reveals lush cinematography by future Oscar winner Russell Carpenter and a bittersweet score that rivals E.T. for emotional punch. Streaming audiences now praise its message. Childhood innocence survives only when communities face their ghosts, literal and historical, together. Ghostkeeper, 1981. Set high in the
Never heard of Ghostkeeper.
snow-packed Canadian Rockies, Ghostkeeper begins like a slasher and ends like a campfire folktale. On New Year's Eve, 3 friends abandon their snowmobiles and break into an abandoned luxury hotel, its chandeliers iced over and corridors knee-deep in powder. The lone resident, a frail innkeeper who whispers about feeding the house, hides something ancient in the boiler room. Director James Makichuk shot with a 6-person crew in a real blizzard, stretching a tiny tax shelter budget by sleeping cast and crew in the same frozen lodge they filmed in. The plot taps the indigenous Wendigo legend. Betray your friends in
Wendigo.
winter, and the spirit eats your soul. Makichuk rewrote scenes nightly, filming whatever weather allowed, so the story drifts like a fever dream. Local papers praised the authentic Rockies backdrop, even as urban critics called it too quiet. That quiet, though, was gold for VHS kids in the mid-80s who were tired of screeching synth stings. Ghostkeeper felt like the wind itself was telling the story. Generation X remembered the image of the elderly woman pouring tea while a whiteout raged outside. Suddenly, Grandma's cottage didn't feel safe. Modern slow-burn chillers, The Blackcoat's Daughter, 30 Days of Night, owe a debt to this modest Canadian creeper, proof that raw weather can freeze an audience deeper than any jump scare. The House Where Evil Dwells, 1982.
Another movie I've never heard of.
Director Kevin Connor shipped the classic haunted house setup across the Pacific and soaked it in Japanese folklore. A violent 1840 samurai love triangle ends in blood and suicide. A century later, an American diplomat moves his family into the moss-covered villa, unaware the lovers' spirits still duel behind shoji screens. Shot entirely on location in Kyoto's Sagano bamboo forest, the U.S.-Japan co-production cost $4 million and employed kabuki actors as spectral doubles, lending the ghosts a sinuous, dancer-like grace. Practical tricks, floating sake bowls filmed on reverse wire pulls, terrified early audiences, yet American critics mocked its East meets West tone, sinking box office hopes. Ironically, Japanese late-night TV embraced the Gaijin in Peril tale, spawning a short-run manga adaptation now prized by collectors. For Western viewers riding the 1980s wave of Walkmans, sushi bars, and Nintendo consoles, the film mirrored unease about cultural cross-pollination. Move in too casually, it warns, and the past will slice you open. Military families stationed abroad passed VHS copies around barracks. Many 80s kids still shudder at the possessed crab scuttling across tatami mats. Rewatch today and savor widescreen vistas of crooked Jizo statues and moonlit bamboo, real Kyoto landmarks rarely filmed since. The final freeze frame, a chrysanthemum turning black, delivers a poetic gut punch modern J-horror still imitates. The Supernatural,
I hate spiders, and I've never heard of the Supernaturals.
1986. Long before elevated horror was a buzzword, director Armand Mastroianni fused war trauma with ghost mythology. A National Guard squad's war games disturbed the mass grave of Confederate prisoners forced across a minefield in 1865. Filmed on abandoned Army land in Georgia, the picture pairs future Star Trek icons LeVar Burton and Nichelle Nichols, though marketing somehow forgot to brag.
Uhura!
Embassy Pictures slashed the budget mid-shoot,
I
so the
loved
effects team
Uhura.
improvised phosphorescent face paint and glow in the dark contacts that make the revenants seem carved from swamp gas. Cinematographer Stephen Poster bathed night scenes in tracer green mist, turning limitations into eerie style. The movie hit only 86 U.S. screens before fleeing to VHS, where teen renters shelved it beside Vietnam dramas like Platoon. For mid-80s audiences wrestling with PTSD headlines and MIAs, its message rang clear. The unfinished sins of war will hunt the next generation. School counselors even used bootleg copies to spark talks on survivors' guilt. Today, The Supernaturals reads like a bridge between Jacob's Ladder and Overlord. Claymore mines detonate in reverse, rifles twist toward their owners, and Nichols delivers a thunderous monologue on accountability that feels painfully current. Its box office failure nudged Burton back to TV safety and left Mastroianni to small screen work, another reason to salute this flawed, ambitious gem. Pulse, 1988. Most hauntings live in attics. Pulse torments the electrical grid.
I saw this, Joey Lawrence. It was a little cheesy, and it really feels like a Lifetime movie. And what I mean by cheesy is Joey Lawrence's acting. He's a kid, but he's acting too much like a perfect kid. Now, I understand that was his job and he did it very good. But you put that aside, it was a very interesting movie. It reminded me a little bit of a movie called Shocker. In Shocker, a prisoner gets sentenced to the electric chair, and somehow or another he changes into these electrical pulses, and he's able to travel through electrical wires and still get people. This is not a person that this happens to, but that's similar to what happens in here. And it is a good movie to let kids see if you want your kids to watch horror movies. There's no nudity, no sex. And over the years, I've gotten told, well, how can you let your kid watch gory stuff? He could be in a car. Any kid could be driving somewhere and see a dead body. It could look gory, can see an accident. It's the sex and nudity they don't see every day. And when I was a kid, National Geographic was a big thing for us kids to watch, shows like that. And you saw animals killing each other and ripping each other apart. And we didn't grow up to do the same thing. But yeah, this is a great starter movie for kids. If you want it to be more than just the Monster Squad. It was pretty good.
Writer-director Paul Golding stages a suburban divorce story where the real custody battle is between people and their appliances. Young David visits Dad's new tract house just as a rogue current, shot as writhing green energy racing through copper, begins scalding showers and weaponizing garbage disposals. NASA engineers consulted so every short circuit obeyed plausible voltage limits. Special effects wizard Kevin Pike exploded 200 thrift store microwaves to perfect sparking door hinges. Released by Columbia into late summer doldrums, the film grossed a meek $2.5 million, but cable networks adored its PG-13 thrills, looping it between Poltergeist 3 and War Games. A generation of latchkey.
Well, Poltergeist 3 kinda sucked. And I really, really enjoyed the first Poltergeist and the second one. The third one, to me, didn't hold up to the other two. Not at all. But, to each his own.
Key kids suddenly yanked plugs at night, reinforcing technophobia already stoked by Chernobyl fallout and smog alerts. Stylistically, it foreshadowed 90s cyber horror. Crude CG tendrils anticipate The Lawnmower Man, and sickly sodium vapor lighting anticipates Saw. The cul-de-sac set reappeared 2 years later in Edward Scissorhands, proving the same suburb could house both pastel dreams and electronic nightmares.
I never saw Edward Scissorhands. I was never interested in it, and I'm still not interested in it. But I think my friend Dorneris loves Edward Scissorhands. So again, to each their own.
Revisit Pulse and hear the 1980s warning that smart homes, then called automatic, might love us to death. Prison, 1987. Before Die Hard 2 made him a household name,
Never heard of this movie.
Finnish director Rennie Harlin turned a condemned Wyoming penitentiary into a supernatural slaughterhouse. The opening 1960 execution of innocent Charlie Forsyth, filmed in the institution's real gas chamber, sets off decades-long vengeance. When the disused block reopens, the now warden who threw the switch must face barbed wire that coils like vipers and steel bars that twist like taffy. Shot for $1.3 million, the production let Harlan torch real cells and drill holes in concrete because the state planned to demolish the prison anyway. Future Oscar winner Viggo Mortensen performs his own stunts amid live fire, while makeup legend John Carl Buechler designs Forsyth's glowing vein specter, a look later echoed in Event Horizon. The MPAA's X-rating threat forced 47 seconds of gore cuts and tanked domestic grosses at $354,000, but 110,000 VHS units found eager blue-collar audiences in towns where prisons provided local jobs. For Reagan-era viewers bombarded with tough-on-crime rhetoric, seeing the system itself punished felt cathartic. Behind the scenes, producer Irwin Yablans was so impressed he hired Harlan for A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and composer Richard Band's mournful choir inspired early Nine Inch Nails demos. Blu-ray restorations now reinstate the carnage, showing how this scrappy ghost yarn forged the big-budget bravado that defined 90s action cinema. Witchboard, 1986.
Never saw Witchboard either.
Back when Slumber Party Rental was a marketing strategy, writer-director Kevin Tenney turned a $2 million pocket change budget into the first theatrical feature built entirely around a modern Ouija board. The plot feels ripped from a campfire dare. Carefree, Linda asks the board for lottery numbers and instead unchains a Victorian child spirit who may be a lying longshoreman with a hatchet. Production shot in 8 weeks around Venice Beach, where Tenney's crew blew half the budget on Steadicam rentals so the Planchette's Ghost Cam could roam hallways like an invisible toddler on roller skates. At test screenings, the talking board got bigger cheers than the actors, so distributor International Film Marketing ran TV spots that showed nothing but the Planchette spelling DIE. That campaign worked. Witchboard earned $7.3 million worldwide, triple its cost, and kicked off a brief 1987 toy store boom in glow-in-the-dark spirit boards before Hasbro sued the knockoffs. Gen X renters loved it for another reason. It legitimized co-ed sleepovers. Parents assumed the R rating was for satanic imagery. Teens knew it was mostly witty bickering between a jealous boyfriend and Linda's sassy medium friend, played by Kathleen Wilhoit. Guitar god George Buck Flower cameoed as an ex-con plumber because Tenney promised to let him write a blues track for the end credits. Flower recorded Graveyard Blues in one take at 3 a.m., and the scratch vocal made the final print, one of the cheapest soundtrack deals of the decade. For impact, Witchboard proved you could wring suspense from a prop anyone could buy at Kmart, paving the way for Jumanji, Stay Alive, and the Ouija franchise. Rewatch today, and you'll spot embryonic performances from stunt coordinator turned actor James W. Quinn, who later designed kills for Final Destination. Ironic, since our next title practically wrote that playbook. The Boogeyman, 1980.
Never saw this one either.
Berlin-born maverick Uli Lommel shot this mirror shard revenge saga on a shoestring $300,000, partly financed by selling his own Warhol canvases. The gimmick, a brother and sister smash a haunted-looking glass. Every sliver now floats through the air, slicing throats and possessing kitchen knives. Lommel filmed in his in-laws' Long Island farmhouse, pouring red-dyed Caro syrup onto real hardwood floors because the stain looked pretty, a choice that cost him his deposit, but gave the kills a sticky authenticity. Released by the notorious Jerry Gross organization, the movie surfed the post-Halloween wave to a staggering $35 million global haul, a 100-to-1 return few Wall Street analysts enjoy. UK censors slapped it onto the video nasty list, ensuring instant cult status. Lommel counter-programmed the ban by touring U.S. college towns.
Was that the Amityville house in this?
With a traveling mirror maze lobby display where fans could sign shards and take them home in velvet bags. Countless dorm walls across 1981 had a reflective splinter taped beside the theatrical one-sheet, a piece of guerrilla marketing that prefigured today's take a souvenir pop-up horror events. Generational impact? The film hammered home that low-budget ingenuity could spawn franchisable IP. Its success bankrolled Lommel's later art house horrors and convinced distributors to gamble on other European imports like Demons and City of the Living Dead. Modern viewers accustomed to slick digital ghosts may laugh at the fishing line-controlled glass, but the homespun trickery feels oddly fresh in an era of CGI overload. Watch for the closing freeze frame. A glint in a baby's eye hints the curse never ends. A trope sinister and it follows would echo decades later. Soul Survivor, 1984.
Never heard of this one.
Before Final Destination turned death into an algorithm, writer-director Tom Eberhardt envisioned fate as a pack of hollow-eyed strangers hustling through Los Angeles traffic. Radio exec Denise jumps a red-eye flight. Everyone else dies in a fireball, leaving her the miracle survivor the media adore. Eberhardt, fresh out of USC Film School, maxed credit cards for 2 perforation film stock, letting cinematographer Russell Carpenter shoot economy widescreen. To populate the crash site, he bought 40 charred mannequins from a fire marshal training yard for $50 each, bribing the yard manager with Dodgers tickets. Critics dismissed the movie as too sad for horror, but that melancholy struck a chord with Reagan-era audiences bombarded by airline terror headlines. Campus counselors screened it during survivor guilt workshops. Vietnam vets reportedly found the shambling, almost dead extras reflected their own nightmares. Cult growth accelerated when late-night TNT placed it in a Women in Peril marathon. Viewers noticed Denise actively fights her cosmic stalkers rather than fainting into male arms. Fun fact, a guerrilla subplot features a pre-night of the Comet cameo from Catherine Mary Stewart, linking Eberhardt's 2 cult gems into what fans jokingly call the Cometverse. Why revisit? Beyond its proto-Final Destination premise, Soul Survivor invites discussion of media exploitation. Every time Denise switches on the TV, news stations re-air crash footage with her name superimposed. That tension between public fascination and private trauma feels ripped from today's viral video outrage cycles. With Carpenter's neon taillights and David F. Anthony's heartbeat score, now remastered in 4K, The film finally looks as sharp as its fatalistic script always felt. One Dark Night, 1983.
Never heard of this one either. So there are a lot on this list I've never heard of and never seen.
If John Hughes ever rewrote a EC Comics tale, it might look like Tom McLaughlin's Mausoleum Shocker. New girl Julie must spend a night inside LA's Crypt Cathedral Tower Mausoleum to join the high school clique, the Sisters. Trouble is, the marble corridors hold psychic corpse collector Raymar, loosely based on Russian telekinesis researcher Ninel Kulagina, a fact McLaughlin discovered in a National Enquirer clipping taped above his typewriter. Production wrangled permits at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, but the real building closed at dusk, forcing cast and crew to shoot from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m., then nap in hearses to make call time. McLaughlin's wife, stuntwoman Nancy McLaughlin, rigged levitating corpse effects using hidden leaf blowers and fishing poles, producing a ghastly puppet waltz that had Fangoria readers dubbing it the gooey Disney-haunted mansion. Distribution hell ensued. Producer Edward Montoro vanished with the negatives during his own court case, delaying release until 1983. By then, star Adam West was pushing Batman reruns at conventions and became the accidental marketing draw. The movie earned modest box office but exploded on HBO, where latchkey kids memorized its purple lightning climax. Sociologically, it mirrors 1980s teen initiation anxiety, proving once again that peer pressure rarely ends well, and its female-centric cast gave rare scream queen agency years before The Craft. McLaughlin used leftover electrokinesis sound FX when he directed Friday the 13th Part 6, so Jason's Resurrection and much of modern horror's Thunderzap echoes Raymar's Mausoleum Meltdown. With Kino Lorber's Blu-ray restoration, you can finally spot the Easter egg graffiti. Tina Loves Freddy, a pre-meta wink to Wes Craven's glove-handed Ghoul. Ghost Town, 1988.
Never heard of Ghost Town either.
Empire Pictures was bankrupt and auctioning off film cans when director Richard Governor sneaked this 6-week Western horror shoot onto an Arizona backlot. The premise slaps. Modern Deputy Langley chases a kidnapped woman through a dust storm portal and lands in Sundown, a desert town where every outlaw died in 1882 but still slings lead for a demon gunslinger named Devlin. Because Empire could no longer afford day players, Governor stuffed locals into century-old cavalry coats and paid them with lunch vouchers, giving the Phantoms an authentically weather-beaten look. Special effects legend David Allen built animatronic tumbleweeds that howl like banshees, while composer Harvey Bernhard fused Morricone whistles with Carpenter-esque synth, an oddball mashup that Tarantino later cited as scratch track inspiration for Django Unchained. Theatrical release evaporated when Empire collapsed, so Ghost Town limped to video stores in a plain white clamshell whose only artwork was a sheriff badge sticker. Yet it found unexpected fans among truck stop renters and Dungeons & Dragons players who adored the gunslinger lich villain. Generational impact arrived via cable superstation TBS, which packaged it in a Saturday cowboy sci-fi block that reran monthly until 1993. Ask any elder millennial. The image of Devlin clawing his way out of a coffin, 6 shooters still blazing, was the reason they pulled the blanket over their head at sleepovers. Modern rewatch value? Aside from seeing future Twin Peaks alum Catherine Hickland wield a ghost-banishing shotgun.
Oh, look who it is! She was married to David Hasselhoff from Knight Rider. And I forget her name, but she, for a number of years, was in, I think, One Life to Live. Oh!
Ghost Town hints at what could have been. A shared universe where spectral outlaws haunted every frontier fort. With Vinegar Syndrome's 2K scan finally letting sagebrush colors pop, the film closes our list by reminding us that forgotten doesn't mean lifeless. Sometimes it's just waiting in the dust for someone brave enough to ride in. And there you have it. 15 80s ghost tales rattling chains just outside the Netflix algorithm, itching for a fresh set of mortal eyes. If even one of these spectral sleepers haunted your memories tonight, smash that like button, share the chills with a friend, and drop your own forgotten favorite down in the comments. Until next time, keep the flashlight handy. Because on this channel, the past is never really dead. Did you know the 1980s oozed out more?
I really enjoyed that. And I think I might watch Ghost Story. I don't know. I might. Hopefully, you guys found something you might want to watch too. On to the next video.